Beware the stare. Beware the stare.
I'm Steph.
And I'm Ange.
We're Nerdazons.
Except, that was better, except.
Oh my goodness. These...
Take 45.
Makes me feel... Do you want me to do it again?
No.
Oh, I'm not good at them like you are.
So that did take her a few times. I'm not going to tell you what the previous were, but that was the best.
Okay, yeah, and it wasn't as good. Steph is better at doing these than I am.
We all know that.
Wow. What? Okay, so this episode is my choice. It's Village of the Damned. It was my Halloween pick. So this is a movie that I always knew of, and I'd seen bits and pieces of the remake as a kid, but I never actually knew the full story. So I thought, you know what, what's the perfect time to actually watch this and learn the story of it. So that's why I chose it.
This is the first time I'd watched either of them. I wasn't as into horror films, I was into classic. I was into, the mainstream ones, like Scream, and I know this was last summer, but I wouldn't look at anything else, and I'd never seen that. That would always scare me, that poster.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I love, like, classic horrors. I like the good stories. And I don't know, I was just looking for something new, and I find with a lot of new horror films, and this is just, everyone's like got their own opinion, but I feel like a lot of new movies, it's how gory you can make it, and it's not my cup of tea. So, I'm looking to find a lot of the classic suspenseful and thriller sort of horror movies because that's what I would prefer. I prefer a good story to it, and you don't need gore and stuff. And this is a classic that I think everyone knows the kids, but you don't know the actual film. And it's the same with, I know this is a completely different film, but it's the same with Children of the Corn. It's something that you know of, and you kind of get the gist of the story, but you don't.
I've never seen that either.
Yeah, well, that's another creepy kid film too.
Hence why I'd never seen it, because they're creepy children.
Yeah.
I don't know how I feel about creepy children.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm so glad that I picked these to finally get around and watch it.
I'm glad I watched it.
Yeah, well, let's start with the synopsis. Village of the Damned, 1960. In the English village of Midwich, the blonde-haired, glowing-eyed children of uncertain paternity prove to have frightening powers. Village of the Damned, 1995. A small town's women give birth to unfriendly alien children posing as humans.
I hate that it pretty much tells you what the movie's about and it spoils it for you in that little sentence.
Yeah.
I hate that. I did that myself. And then I was like, this is first thing I'm going to bring up is that, you don't know that they're aliens until Kirstie Alley pulls out and shows you that they're an alien. Whereas the original, you don't know. You don't know.
It's just alluded at the end. So
exactly.
Should we just, since we've jumped into this, should we break down the story first?
Sure.
Yeah. So one thing I noticed when I watched the original, and this is something that as much as I love classics, I actually found it was a bit slow until it sort of got into it. So the whole beginning part where everyone just sort of collapsed and then everyone was figuring it out.
I thought that was great. The first, minute into that film, you're just like, what the heck is happening? Everybody's dying. What?
I do agree. I think it was pretty interesting, but between the time of them sort of solving it and then everyone getting pregnant, I feel that really drawed out until the children were at the age that they started possessing their powers. And I found that was the time that I did start to get a little bored, and I thought, the story, it's good, but they could have picked it up a little bit. Whereas I feel in the second one, they did that really well at the beginning, is everyone, collapsed and that everyone woke back up. And they even showed, the cows in the field were passed out. They showed the experiment of sending someone in, but they just picked the pace up a bit. And I think that worked really well in the second one for the storyline at the beginning.
I actually made that as one of my notes, in the fact that the original, it took 15 to 20 minute backstories for the characters to get to know us, whereas in the 95 version, it was a 1 or 2 minutes and you understood who everybody was.
Yeah.
And, you know, what their part in the story was.
Yeah. I think that was a very good strong point in the remake for the story. They were able to tie up about 2/3 of that film into about a 15-minute beginning and then pick the pace up from there. And they were able, since we're on the story, for the 1995 one, they were able to develop it even further. Like, they built on the idea of the children. Now, before we go too far, these films are actually based off of a book.
Yes.
It's by John Wyndham. The book is called The Midwich Cuckoos.
Do you know why?
Because they're crazy.
No. Do you know what a cuckoo bird is?
Yeah.
So a cuckoo bird is a bird that lays its eggs in other.
That makes sense. Other birds' nests and have them care for it.
Yes, and that they will kick out any of the eggs that are not theirs. They will even, you know, kill the newborn.
Yep.
So that way the mum gives them all of the attention, all of the food and nutrients.
That makes so much sense. That's awesome. I feel like now I need to read this book. But like
I need to as well.
Yeah, I think we should make that on the list. I might see if I can download it. But the reason I brought the book up is I can't testify if they go as far into the kids' storyline as the 1995 version did. John Carpenter's an amazing director, especially in the like field of horror films. Mm-hmm. He was so good at it, and I feel he wouldn't stray too far from the story. So I'm not sure if the 95 version is closer to the book than what the 1961 is. That's just my thought process on that.
What are your thoughts on David being really important and the boss of the children in the 95? But then, because he lost his mate, that he's now, you know, shunned and a nobody in that group. And that he's the one that then survives. I
actually thought a lot on the way that those characters were written. It's hard to say. I actually don't hate it and I don't like it. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't outshine the original, because the way that Mara was written and was incredibly acted in the second one.
Such a good actress.
She completely commanded the screen. I know we've gotten off topic here. We're not on the storyline anymore. We're now talking about actors. But Lindsay Horn, who played Mara, for a young actress of that age, there was not a doubt in my mind that she didn't know what she was doing. And she, like, seemed like, yeah, I control this. You will listen to me. She just had that aura on screen that made it look like she was that character, like a creepy alien who could, like, make you kill yourself. So she was incredible. So it was really hard for me to see what it would be like if David wasn't written as his original character. I feel like they tried to develop them as, like, and their characters in the alien sense a bit, but
I feel like they did that so that way they could make more movies out of this. Yeah, but I mean, I feel rather than having everybody die, like everybody died, all the children died in the.
But in the original, I feel like, okay, I haven't seen the second one, so I haven't read anything about the second one, so I probably am not going to know much of what happened in the story. But to me, I got the impression that any of them could have survived that. You know, I just feel like they were the way they acted in the original, they seem so foreign and scary that, how do we know they aren't, like, flame retardant?
But then you're right, because the original doesn't, that's right, the original left that what if. Yeah. What happens when. I like that it wasn't just a closed book.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, that's probably the biggest thing I love about classic films is they leave so much to the viewer's mind. Like, they are able to create this whole movie and this whole story for you, but then they leave it where there's just enough mystery for you to think about it. But in the second one, we know exactly how it ended. They all died except David, because David left. I don't know. I don't think his empathy or anything really added much to the story. I didn't see the value in it. It was cool that it was there, but I didn't see any value in it.
One of the scenes that I thought was a bit hard to watch was when they were in the town and that they asked the women, do you want to keep the babies or do you not want to keep them? And then they all had a dream that night where they were all happily pregnant, and that they obviously kept, like, that was creepy to think that the children...
Yeah, they were, like, manipulating.
Manipulating the mothers, or telepathically saying, nah, you gotta keep us.
Do you know what? I didn't see it like that, and now that you said that, it makes complete sense to me. I remember watching it thinking, this is the weirdest scene. Why am I watching this? I can't interpret it. It's some new age, modern, like, weird scene, and I don't know what's happening. And I didn't even perceive that. Wow. That makes so much sense. Of course, they didn't want to be killed. Damn.
Yeah. And then the others, like, having the other colonies that just freaks, like, creepy children just freak me out. And that these, the original children were so creepy because obviously it was black and white. So you had to use your imagination with it, but the eyes would just, and right this very second, because we're recording via Skype, my Skype's kind of made Ange a little bit funny and her eyes are literally glowing right now.
Wow, do I have a filter on or something?
No, it stopped. I should have taken a screenshot.
Oh, that's hilarious. No, I do agree though. I think since we're we've jumped a little bit all over the place, but we might as well move to the camera techniques since you're on that topic of the eyes. I did giggle a little when I saw when they did the test on the kids with the box, the puzzle box in 1960, and he goes to the house where the poor young girl and her mum, they were both pregnant, and then the kid who was in the mum's hand, and when he was staring at the other kid for snatching the box, I don't know if you noticed, but half the actual screen, there was a line right down the middle of the screen. So what they did is with the kid is they put, like, they just left the image there, and it was it was still, so it didn't move at all. Yes. And the other half, the mum was sort of still moving, but it was the best way that they could put the eyes on top of the kid to stare down the other kid was just put a picture there, and I was like, that's hilarious. And how do you deal with, like, child actors in 1960? Take a picture.
Another thing that, speaking of this, of the 1995, because it's set in a coastal town, and whenever they do the shots of the coast, it is beautiful, but it's never dark. It's never nighttime, but it's always super foggy. And I liked that it added that fogginess, eeriness to the movie.
And they did it without, which I find in some films they do, they try to put, like, filters and things on it to make it seem really dark. And then it just makes it difficult as a viewer to watch the film because of all these filters that they're putting on the screen. Whereas I think John Carpenter, he's just a genius in the films that he does. And he was able to, bring an eeriness to the film without having to make a film dark naturally. Like, it was done in the broad, and that's what's scary about it. It was done in broad daylight. These kids weren't afraid to do what they did in broad daylight.
I do like the fact that this movie didn't need blood and gore to be scary.
Although the second one got a bit gory.
Yes, but when I liked that, obviously they couldn't do the techniques and all that kind of stuff, but I liked that whenever, one of them shot himself on the head, it was just, you saw the kids and then bang.
Yeah, in the original you didn't see it. It just left it to the viewer's imagination.
Yeah.
You know what was happening, but we don't need to show you.
Yeah.
I agree, and I think it's, like, so much more creepy knowing that you're dazed, you have to watch it, you know you're watching it, but then when you wake up you're like, oh my God, there's a dead body right in front of me.
But when the old lady burnt at the 95 one,
Hamill's wife,
that blew my mind. I was like, wait, that's not Mark Hamill, is it?
His name came up on the original. Yeah, see, I always knew Kirstie Alley was in it, but I didn't realise the cast that was in the second one.
I know.
I think even Christopher Reeve was in it. I was just like, what? How did I not know? How did I only remember Kirstie Alley? And her performance was not the strongest, I must say. But she was the one I remembered.
What I was saying was, I think it's hilarious that even in the 1995 one, the town was coming with pitchforks and fire.
Like mob mentality. Yeah.
Exactly. But I mean, we wouldn't do that anymore. It's such a stereotypical thing to do. And I laughed at that quite a lot.
I agree. It's not something that you would normally. I think it's such a classic trope, especially when you've got horror films set in the 1800s. It's always a mob mentality with pitchforks and and torches and things like that to go and kill them. No, since we're kind of jumping around a bit, let's just move straightly over to actors. Mm-hmm. So we mentioned I didn't realize that it was Mark Hamill and Christopher Reeve in it. I think for me, in the second film, I've mentioned the girl who played Mara, Lindsay Horn. She took control of that screen. She outshone everyone else who acted in that film. I was a little disappointed with Mark Hamill as well. Like, I didn't even see much in the few lines that he delivered. I didn't see much emotion in it, and it was hard for me to see him become deranged and be like, I'm going to kill you anyway, because I didn't see that in anything else.
I was like, what? Why did you suddenly do that? I don't get it.
Yeah, it was odd.
Yeah, I felt like everybody's acting was just, they didn't care about it. I think they were all just in it for the money.
I completely agree. I really do. Even, like, Christopher Reeve wasn't bad. I think he's probably the next best under the kids. The kids definitely took the screen for this, but yeah, it was a bit underwhelming compared to the original. So in the original one, you had Barbara Shelley as the mum. I thought she was much more convincing as a woman.
Yes.
Who A, wow, my kid's not paying attention to me, or B, is that my kid? Because, you know, he seems a bit evil sort of thing. Like, she seemed that conflicting mum compared to the other one, whereas they got rid of her quite quickly, which I was also shocked. They changed the dynamics in the 95 one of the different relationships compared to the original, which took me a while to figure out what was happening. So Barbara Shelley's character in the second one, she was the first to die because she plunged off the cliff.
Yep.
Whereas the wife of the professor survived in the original. Mm-hmm. And then also David wasn't the professor's kid. David was, like, his sister's kid. It was the sister this time, not the, like, army brother. Yeah, it was a very different dynamic, and it was really hard for me to follow, and I feel like it wasn't necessary. It was simple with just one couple that we followed and the kids.
What did you think of the scene where the two mothers dipped their hands in the heat? Like, that was freaky to me.
I think it was freaky. I actually think it was done better in the 95. It took me a while to figure out in the original why it was happening. Then I'm like, oh, I realized it was the kid that did it. But it was immediate and apparent that the kid is the one that did it, the remake. And I thought it was done well. And the burns on her hand looked like so painful. Like, they did such good makeup on her arm. It was like a pink. It looked like it had just been boiled, which was what it was supposed to look like. And I think the makeup looked really good. But again, it was hard to sort of really feel anything because you didn't really know that character. Like, she wasn't in it for much, and she was just in it to sort of be the first one to die, you know?
The makeup and stuff was great on the arm, and like you said, it was very apparent that it was the kid. It looked gross, and I was like, oh, that's got to hurt. But like you said, I didn't really care about anybody. I didn't really care about anybody in the 95 one except for the girl. I was just like, oh my gosh, you are an alien. You are... definitely not in this world.
See, it's interesting too, because I find in the 95 one, I don't know if this is just because it's the inner geek in me, but I got like a massive Star Trek vibe from it, and Rick and Morty. Like, I just got hive mind all over. Like, I'm like, oh, I can you can really sort of understand the hive mentality between them, and why David was different was because I think half of his, like, I'm doing air quotation marks, but half of his mind was technically gone because there was one child that didn't survive.
Yeah. Oh my God, I didn't think of that.
Yeah, and he's, like, kind of broken away because the hive mind, they're all talking. It's like, you stay with your partner, this is what you do, but he couldn't connect with that because he's like, but I don't have the partner, what do I do? Sort of thing.
Oh my God, I never... That's like blowing my mind.
Oh, really? Because that was very apparent to me why he was different, which I thought it was a really cool way that they tied it into the story. But as I said earlier, was it necessary? I don't know. Whereas in the original one, they didn't really have them as like a hive mind. They just they had them as a hive mind, but they weren't like partnered off. Which I don't know if that makes them creepier or...
And I don't like that they were in Australia.
I know, yeah, when they said they bombed him and stuff, and I'm like, oh, okay.
Okay.
Okay. I like the original one on the sense that it builds a lot of mystery around them. But I do also like how they developed the story of the kids in the second one. I have to say, though, Kirstie Alley's character, let's talk about that. I don't know if I liked the fact that she was this alien scientist, you know, and the way she died was horrific. Yeah. It was so horrible. There was one key thing that I really liked in the original, and it was such a simple thing, but it stuck to my mind, and I think it was a really good camera shot that they did. Or, well, not camera shot, but the fact that they added that scene in, and it was the brick wall. It was so simple to just record it, but it's like I immediately visualized it in my head as well. The brick wall. So as soon as in the original, just by them constantly showing it and having the professor, like Gordon, just look at the brick wall and be like a brick wall, like a brick wall. I immediately started to visualize it, but then they kind of cut that out and just said how it was addressed in the second one was, it took me years to build a brick wall to hide from these kids. And I'm like, you kind of ruined that.
And then you thought of waves.
Premise. Yeah, it was completely gone. And I was just like, oh, I like the brick wall. It was so much better.
I liked the fact that it was a brick wall, and then as the time clicked, you know, you saw they realized time's up.
Yep.
Time's up.
I liked it too. I thought it was a really cool idea, actually, in both films, or just in the general story. I thought that was such a good way to overcome the kids, because even I was thinking, how do you get around this? Like, they'll know your every move. How do you become 2 steps ahead of someone who knows how many steps ahead you are? And I thought it was really smart. But I enjoyed
these movies a lot.
Yeah, they were really good. I'm glad we finally, I finally watched them, because I liked them a lot more than what I thought. I have to say, the Doctor in the original one, played by Lawrence Naismith, do you know who he reminded me of?
Who?
And it was freaky how much he reminded me of this. But it was a mixture of 2 characters, and it was some of the faces he pulled where he was just like, I pulled the face and no one can see it to our listeners. But he reminded me of Matt Smith, not Matt Smith, he reminded me of Little Britain.
Matt Lucas.
Matt Lucas. He reminded me of a mixture of Matt Lucas from Little Britain, and he also reminded me of Mr. Bouquet from Keeping Up Appearances.
I think that's what he kind of reminded me of Mr. Bouquet.
Yeah, right? And I was just like, damn, that's all I
didn't
could
get
see
Matt
every
Lucas.
time the Doctor came in.
But Mr. Bouquet, yep.
Yeah, it's sometimes Matt Lucas pulls like this silly face where he doesn't look like he knows what he's talking about, or he's just like dumbfounded or like mindless. And I found that the Doctor pulled that face, and I just kept seeing that the whole way through. So back in the original, one thing that I found so weird is that this was being managed by another county's chief of police, all because his like inspector is the brother of a famous professor and the professor just happens to reside in the village, so they took control of these alien children, which I don't understand how the government didn't take them. It just didn't make sense to me that these few select people had to manage the children. It was very odd to me. And then at the very end, it's like they're going to strike and just bomb them. How did the military not seize them, you know, in the beginning? It just didn't make sense that these few people were going to control these alien people in, it was weird. That's
a movie and not a documentary.
I know, but sometimes I overthink these things.
I know you do.
It made more sense in the second one, it did, where Kirstie, not that I really liked that she was this, but it made sense that she was like the leading specialist in it, which is why she was brought in, because they are like an alien life force, and then like the military was very heavy-handed in it, and it made more sense to me in the second one.
I did like the scene where Kirstie Alley was talking to the government, and it was just in that pitch black. Like, I just thought, what's going to happen? Something's going to happen. And I just felt like that just added a extra creepiness.
Yeah, and I think with her character, the way they kept her in full black, like a black trench coat, she had her sunglasses on, she was always smoking, and she didn't talk much with characters, which also helped develop her character to be mysterious, of like, who is this person in black? Who is this woman in black? Why is she coming to our town? And I think that was a good thing, but I just don't think it was her strongest performance, and it's the same with Mark Hamill. I don't think it was their strongest. You had
same as Christopher Reeve.
Same as Christopher Reeve, yeah. They had such a strong cast, and it just didn't seem the strongest performance out of them.
It's just, I feel like their spark wasn't there, or that there was something just missing.
I agree. I very much agree. The way it was directed, as I've mentioned before, John Carpenter is a genius.
What else has he done?
So he did Halloween.
Mm-hmm.
So
I love the Halloween.
Yeah, he did the original Halloween. He did the original Fog. He is a genius with he composes his own music as well. So he did the music for this film as well, which is really, really cool. I'm pretty sure he was also involved he also did, not that everyone likes this film, but he did Big Trouble in Little China. He did The Thing.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so
I've heard these movies, I've just never seen them other than Halloween.
Yeah, well, he's really good, and there's like some weird connection with his family and a lot of like Hollywood actors and stuff. I'm pretty sure in some weird way, quote me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure Nicolas Cage is also related to him in some way.
That's cool.
I know, well, it just shows that, you got to know someone in the industry. But I actually have listened to a lot of John Carpenter's albums as well. So, like, he's a brilliant composer, which it's incredible to see that he's he's talented to be able to do all of those things. He can direct, he can produce, he can compose a score, which in itself is incredible. So I think he was strong in what he did, how he executed, how he envisioned that the film was going to be shot and everything. But yeah, that was done. It's just sad that the actors didn't really bring it.
No, they did not.
Okay, so I know that this was all over the place, but as Steph has once said, this is not us with structure. We really do try and keep it structured, but we just get so lost on our tangents when we talk about things that...
Although we didn't go off topic that much this episode.
I know. I think I'm proud of us. I think we deserve to have a drink.
I think we do.
Get a treat.
Cheers.
Positive reinforcement. So I get to ask you the fun questions this time. We'll start off with movie reels. How many movie reels do you give both films?
I didn't prepare my answer.
Neither did I.
But talking about it, I did actually enjoy the first one a lot more because it was only just over an hour long. It wasn't a long film. Yes, it took a while to get to the point, but I actually didn't mind that it took that long. I would probably watch it again. I'm going to go a 3.5.
Nice. What about the second one?
The second one, that girl was incredible. I did I don't know. I'm torn because I can't decide if I liked this movie or I didn't like this movie. So I think that's just made my mind, and I'm going to go 2.5 because I can't decide.
Do you know what? I feel like your arguments have really sort of helped me with mine because I didn't prepare. I am on the same fence as you. So I did like the original. Like you said, it was only an hour and a half. It was pretty quick to get through.
An hour and 17 minutes.
Yeah, I agree. I did find there was a small chunk of it, about 20 minutes in there, that did drag too long. But I liked the story development of this one more. I liked that it left the kids a little bit more, like, you craved wanting to know who they are and what they are. So I liked that element of it. So for me, I would give this one probably a 3.5. I would watch it again. I wouldn't say it's the first horror film that I'm going to go out and put on, if you know what I mean, but I definitely would watch this again. As for the second one, I'm a bit like you. I don't know if I hate it and I don't know if I like it. There are parts that I like. I also weirdly liked that they developed the kid's story a little bit, but at the same time, I kind of wish they didn't. So I just don't know if it's a conundrum. I don't know if I like it or hate it. I probably would do a 2.7. Actually, I think I'd go 2.75. I think a lot of the graphics were pretty cool. The young girl who played Maura was amazing. She was creepy as hell, and she was very commanding on screen.
Yes.
For a child actor of that age, I thought it was pretty amazing. It was shot beautifully. The only thing I feel that really sort of detrimented it was the adult actors were just a little off. Actually, I might pull it up to a 3 because I think it wasn't bad, minus the adult actors.
fair call.
Yeah. So, what do you think they got on Rotten Tomatoes?
Okay, so the 1960s is a classic. Everyone's like, it's a must-see.
Yeah.
I think for its time, it was like mind-blowing movie.
Yeah.
Such a weird storyline. I'm going to go that it was like in the 90s. I'm going to go 96%.
Close, but lower.
94%.
Really close. I got 93.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I'm not far off.
Which I actually think is good. I completely agree with that. The audience score for the original was 77. Okay. So I think it pretty much sums up what we thought when we watched it as well. It was great, but there were parts that we didn't like about it. What do you think the 95 version got?
For some reason, 54% is like running through my mind.
Lower.
Lower?
Yep. And a lot.
Oh, yeah. 32%.
So close. You got 31. I'm impressed. You got very close. 31%. And the audience score was quite close to this as well. It was 27%. So I think these ratings sum up how we feel about these films. We don't know if they're good. Well, the second one, we don't know if it's good. We don't know if it's bad. But it wasn't bad, but it wasn't good.
Yeah, I know. I'm just like, nah. As I'm thinking, I'm like, can I change the score in any way? And I'm just like, middle of the par.
2.5, yeah. Yeah, I'll probably still stick with the 3 because I think it wasn't bad, but it wasn't good. And there was a lot of positives in it that it kind of slightly outweighed the negatives. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is a confusing film. Because you don't know if you like it or you hate it.
I know.
And it's really hard
it's like Nicolas Cage to me. I don't know if he's a good actor or a terrible actor.
But then they say he's so, he's so good because he seems like he's so terrible. I like Nicolas Cage.
I don't know about him, but let's move on to
Nerdazons Nerdy Notables.
Okay, so I don't have much to talk about this month or this fortnight. Got to stop saying month. But I did prepare a Penny Dreadful.
For Halloween!
Halloween, the best. So this one I didn't go gory for this one, but I chose an Aussie unsolved crime that's been unsolved since the 40s.
What?
Yeah. And for all our international listeners, I shouldn't abbreviate, but it's an Australian crime. Well, not a crime even. It's just an Australian case that has been unsolved since 1948. Let's get started. So, the story I'm going to tell you today is the mystery of the Somerton Man, or known as the Tamam Shud case. It's an unsolved case of an unidentified man found dead in 1948 on the Somerton Park beach, just south of Adelaide, South Australia in Australia.
I didn't know that Adelaide is like the serial killer of
that's
the world.
Where they all are. You know that crazy cannibal lady that I was telling you about? She's from there. And there's like so many messed up documentaries of like guys who, there's this one guy, I struggled to get through the 2-episode podcast. I struggled. And this guy was like known for killing like animals and people and stuffing them in vats, all in Adelaide or like South Australia.
Mm-mm.
The man was found lying in the sand across from the crippled children's home, which was on the corner of the Esplanade and Bickford Terrace. He was lying back with his head resting against the seawall, with his legs extended and his feet crossed. It was believed the man had died while sleeping. An unlit cigarette was on the right of his collar. A search of his pockets revealed an unused second-class rail ticket from Adelaide to Henley Beach, a bus ticket from the city that may have not been used, a US-manufactured narrow aluminium comb, a half-empty packet of juicy fruit chewing gum, an Army Club cigarette packet which contained 7 cigarettes of a different brand. Kensitas is the brand. I probably pronounced that wrong. Quarter full box of Bryant and May matches. So that was what he had. So he's on the beach and he had all those items on him. He was dressed in a white shirt, a red, white and blue tie, brown trousers, socks and shoes, a brown knitted pullover and a fashionable grey and brown double-breasted jacket of reportedly American tailoring. All labels on his clothes had been removed. He had no hat, which was unusual for 1948, or a wallet. He was clean-shaven and carried no identification, which led police to believe he had committed suicide. Finally, his dental records were not able to be matched to any known person. The case had been considered, since the early stages of the police investigation, one of Australia's most profound mysteries. There had been intense speculation ever since regarding the identity of the victim, the cause of his death, and the events leading up to it. Public interest in the case remained significant for several reasons. The death occurred at a time of heightened international tensions following the beginning of the Cold War, the apparent involvement of a secret code, the possible use of undetectable poison, and the inability of authorities to identify the dead man. The South Australian Police consulted international agencies for any help. The United States FBI was unable to match the dead man's fingerprints with prints taken from files of domestic criminals. Scotland Yard was also asked to assist, and they couldn't offer any insights.
Wow.
All right. Like, who is this man?
Who is he?
There was conflicting witness reports saying they saw the man in different positions at different times, and one suggesting another man was carrying him there. There was one witness report that states they saw him move at about 7 p.m. The autopsy showed that the man's last meal was a pasty eaten 3 to 4 hours before death, but tests failed to reveal any foreign substance in his body. Although poisoning remained a prime suspicion, the pasty was not believed to be the source. Other than that, the coroner was unable to reach a conclusion as to the man's identity, cause of death, or whether the man seen alive at Somerton Beach on the evening of 30th of November was the same man, as nobody had seen his face at that time. So there were all these reports of people saying they'd seen him, but no one had actually seen his face because it was about 7 p.m. at night. So street lights would have been on at that point. The body was then embalmed on the 10th of December 1948 after the police were unable to get a positive identification. The police said that this was the first time they knew that such action was needed. On 14th of January 1949, staff at the Adelaide railway station discovered a brown suitcase with its label removed, which had checked into the station after 11 a.m. on the 30th of November 1948. It was believed that the suitcase was owned by the man found on the beach. In the case were a red checked dressing gown, a size 7, red felt pair of slippers, 4 pairs of underpants, pajamas, shaving items, a light brown pair of trousers with sand in the cuffs, an electrician's screwdriver, a table knife cut down into a short, sharp instrument, a pair of scissors with sharpened points, a small square of zinc thought to have been used as a protective sheath for the knife and scissors, and a stenciling brush, as used by third officers on merchant ships for stenciling cargo. Also in the suitcase was a thread card of Barber brand orange waxed thread of an unusual type not available in Australia. It was the same as that used to repair the lining in a pocket of the trousers of the dead man was wearing. All identification marks on the clothes had been removed, but police found the name T. Keane on a tie. Keane was also on the laundry bag and a Keane on a singlet, along with the 3 dry cleaning marks, 1171/7, 4393/7, and 3053/7. There's nothing to identify the man, but there were 3 pieces of clothing that had some form of name, but it was probably fake. There was an inquest by the coroner into his death. Although untraceable, they believe it was poison. However, there was no evident sign of vomiting or internal damages to the poison. They believe that the potential sighting of the man moving at 7 p.m., one of the witnesses that said they saw him move, was a potential possible final convulsion before he passed if he was poisoned. At the same time of the inquest, a piece of paper was found inside a fob pocket, which was sewn into the lining of a pair of pants in the suitcase. So it was hidden within the pocket watch inside the lining of a pair of pants.
Wow.
I know, right? The case is actually named after the Persian phrase tamam shud, meaning is over or is finished, which was printed on the scrap of paper. The scrap had been torn from the final page of a copy of, I apologize if I'm butchering this, Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam, authored by 12th century poet Omar Khayyam. So, I mean, that's already, I feel like something rare to have in the 40s in, Adelaide.
Mm-hmm.
Following a public appeal by the police, the book from which the page had been torn was located. On the inside back cover, detectives read through indentations left from the previous handwriting. A local telephone number, another unidentified number, and a text that resembled an encrypted message was found. The text has not been deciphered or interpreted in a way that satisfies authorities on the case. However, the number was the number of a nurse who lived 400 meters away from the location of the body. This is where it gets really interesting. She has claimed, even up until her passing, which was in 2007, I believe, that she did not know the man, and she has no idea why he had her details. There were detectives who did take her to, they did like a face cast of his body when it was found, and they said when she looked at the face cast, she looked and then went white and immediately looked away and didn't look again. So they said she was evasive. So it suspects that you did know him, even though she maintained that she didn't know him. She also had a copy of the Rubaiyat when she worked at the Royal North Shore Hospital in Sydney, Australia, back in World War II. She actually gave that book to an army lieutenant, which then became another suspect. So this book became a trail. Interesting that, so many people had this book and her number happened to be in his copy of the book, but she did give it away. However, they did track his copy of the book down and his book was intact.
I'm thinking, was he a spy? Was he,
Yes, you actually just got to my next point. The biggest theory about this man is he was a spy, especially since it was, just after World War II. It was at the height of the Cold War. He had unidentifiable clothing. He had codes left upon his persons. And even the fob watch was sewn into the lining of his pants, which most people don't do that. They just put it in their pocket.
Yeah.
This is really interesting. In recent years, additional evidence has emerged, including an old identification card, possibly identifying the Somerton man as one H.C. Reynolds, and an ongoing DNA analysis of hair roots found on the plaster bust continue. And this is why I chose this, because in 2021, so 19th of May 2021 this year, they actually re-exhumed his body, which has been exhumed for further analysis. Police stated that the remains were in reasonable condition and were optimistic about the prospect of DNA recovery. So there are many theories as to who he is, but to this day no one knows who the Somerton man is, and the case remains unsolved.
That's creepy.
You should look at pictures of, if you search him, they actually have an image of him just laying there, and he looks like he's just sleeping.
Okay, I'm looking at the pictures now, and it looks like he's just sleeping. You're correct.
Yeah, with his eyes partially open, like he's just laying there.
Oh, and I'm looking at the code.
Yeah, and you can see pictures of, I think you can find pictures of when the suitcase was found at the train station in Adelaide. There's quite a few images in there. You won't find much images on the nurse because she requested at a certain point that her details not to be kept on file or third party, not to be held, like her privacy. She requested it wasn't held, and the police at the time decided, you know what, that's okay. We don't need to keep it there. And funnily enough, the nurse's daughter, even to this day in 2014, like 7 years after her mum died, she even still believes that her mum was withholding evidence. Like she believes her mum knew the guy. It just seems sus. That's all I'm saying. Unless, the mum was also into espionage and she was just meant to be a contact. There's so many theories to it as to who he was. And you can actually see a picture of his tombstone. And because there's no name, it's just this is the man that was found on Somerton Beach.
That's really creepy. That's such a good way to end Halloween as well.
Good. I like some of the unsolved ones make you feel a bit more creeped out, I find.
And do you know which one still creeps me out?
What?
Eliza Lamb.
That one was solved.
Who did it?
No one did it.
Then how could it have been sold?
There was a documentary that came out this year or last year. It was Eliza Lamb.
What happened?
So,
what happened with that
pretty
one?
much what happened. If you watch the documentary, it starts off by, it paints the picture. It gives you really good insight into that area of America and how bad it is. And then you get like a lot of different, you've got like a police view in one episode, you've got the hotel's view in one episode, and then you've got like all the internet police detectives that are trying to solve it in one episode. And at the very end, I'm really glad they did this because it just shut it down. They just like shut all theories down. The police, like, they pretty much just came out and it's like the reason you didn't see full parts of, the video, like it was cut. We cut it, because members of the public aren't supposed to see all evidence in an investigation. And pretty much she had severe bipolar and depression, and she was known to stop taking her medication, and she'd have these severe mood swings. She has in the past thought people were following her and things like that. And she actually, when they looked through her stuff, she had stopped taking her medication for quite some time, and she just started to build paranoia. And when that happens, you try and hide, you try and run, and she just found her way up to the top. And sadly, that's where she decided to hide from what she thought was following her. It was a complete accident.
But how did the lid get covered over the tank?
They did explain it, but I haven't seen it in a while. I'm pretty sure it came out last year. But they definitely watch it. They shut everything down, like all the like theories behind it, like where they think, someone was chasing her or da-da-da-da. It wasn't. It's just a very sad story that she sadly didn't get the help she needed, and she thought she was doing better, but then she like declined. It's got a really sad ending to it, but it's not the theories that everyone thought.
Wow, I'll have to look at what the doco is called, and I'll post it on our website.
Yeah, definitely. It was on Netflix because I remember when it came out, I really wanted to watch it. Me and my partner, we sat down and binged it. There was one episode where it's like, when you get to that last episode and watch, you have the leading detective come in and tell you, all the theories that the online sleuths thought that they had, they didn't have because they didn't have the full case file. They didn't have all the evidence. Like the police withheld a lot of it because, that's their job. They just release certain things to the public to say if you can help on this part of the case. Yep. So that's why like stuff just went weird.
Wow.
Yeah.
It still freaks me out watching the elevator part.
Honestly, it does, and it really makes you feel like someone's there or like, oh my God, what is following her? But at the end, I think that there's a reenactment throughout the series. I'm trying to rack my brain. But yeah, it's just a really sad ending. I wasn't expecting it. I'm kind of glad they came out and said it because it might just put some of the online like sleuths to rest. And, but it's just sad.
Oh.
It's still creepy to watch though.
Oh yeah, 100%. I couldn't get past that whole video the first time I watched it.
Yeah, definitely watch the documentary. It's interesting, and I actually learned a lot. I had no idea. I guess not being from America, I didn't really know about. You always hear about Skid Row, and you hear about it in movies and things like that. I really didn't know what it was, and then when you watch the documentary, it's such a horrible part. No offense, of like country. Yeah, it's just. Anyway, I recommend. I can't believe I didn't tell you I watched it.
No, that's awesome. That was scary, man. That was creepy. Next episode is my choice. I have a special guest coming, which I can't wait. We're doing Beauty and the Beast, the cartoon versus the live action. I bet you can all guess who the guest is, considering it's Disney.
Yeah.
Amber's coming, which I'm so excited about. So if you want to give us a listen on iHeartRadio, Spotify, or wherever you get your good podcasts, you can send us an email at nerdazons@outlook.com. You can follow us at Nerdazons on Facebook and Instagram.
We also have merch by The Amazing Craft Caster. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram, and you can find our merch on Teespring, so it's TEE Spring. Until then, stay nerdy.